Hello guys, Kieran here with Explorminate, and welcome to another, and probably the last little feature here for Endless Space 2 Supremacy, the new expansion coming out. Now when I say last, probably not like the end of the video coverage, but just for these early impression videos, I think I'll have pretty good coverage on what I feel like is worth pointing out within the game between this and the previous video I did. And if you're watching this before you watch my Behemoths video, please go watch that first. If you kind of want the full breadth and depth of my impressions on this, because I'm going to start off this video, talking about the new race. Then we're going to go into the ground combat rework, and then just share some thoughts kind of at the end. So our new race here, the Hissho, are pretty awesome. They are very military focused, so if you're like me and you like combat, they're great, and they are a late game race. I think um, pretty dominantly late game for a few reasons. They look pretty cool. I mean, they're not my favorite looking race, but their ships look really neat. Zoom in here again. You've got that kind of gladiator look. It reminds me of something from like Greece or whatnot. Very metallic and such, but looks neat. And these guys are a crossover from the original Endless Space, I believe. So if you played them before and loved them, that's cool. Where you see that continuing over. I think Amplitude does a good job picking races usually, and these guys add another dimension that we kind of needed. So the Hissho are there's a few things that make them special. One is your happiness all depends on basically your honor, and this is your tracker here. We'll call it the Kai. It's basically produced as you win combat, as you go and fight, whether it's in the ground or space, taking systems, and you lose it from either using it for these little policies, essentially we'll go over, or by retreating, failing invasion, not performing as you should in combat. And uh, a few things that this ties in with. So as long as you're winning battles and not really using the loyalty, sorry, not the loyalty, the honor, the Kai to colonize planets, because it does require a certain amount that increases with each system you colonize, or using it for your little policies, which we'll go over, you can keep your happiness pretty high. And do remember, this number is your happiness. My first playthrough, I was like, why are people hating me? What's going on? I thought I'm doing decent. It's because I was spending this down too much. And that's one reason I think that this is a late game race, because you can get these nice bonuses you can use that are very tempting, but if you use them, they really hurt in the beginning before you're consistently going to be at war with people and things of that nature where you can generate it. Where this does tie in to really benefit you endgame, though, you don't have a like your happiness doesn't depend on the number of stars you have. Unless I've missed something, every other race has their essentially soft cap on how many planets you can have, and then depending on if you grab loyal or approval resources to build up your planets, you could, artificially inflate your happiness so that you get to colonize more planets. But these guys, you just take them, and all that increases is the amount of Kai, or again honor, that you have to spend to colonize a new world. Now, end game, when that doesn't matter anymore because you're not colonizing, you're primarily just taking over places, that's not going to matter. You can just rake up worlds, you can just bring them in and help build the empire. So this is, you might recognize this is the earlier in the game from where I was with the Behemoth video, and I had conquered quite a lot of space over to here, and then was moving down into Riftborn territory. And I want to say it was something like 15 planets, and there's no limit, so you can eventually just outproduce people, which is cool. Looking at a few other things here, you do have an extra Behemoth production limit, which, they're the new shiny toy in this expansion, which is great. And you don't work with pirates. You just don't have diplomacy with them um, and such. But I guess you get twice as much loot, it looks like. I didn't catch that. So there's honor in killing the dishonorable. Um, and then they have something called observances, which is interesting. With each election, it kind of rotates through what they start, but you can sacrifice a member of your population. Where are we looking at here? Diligence, yeah. And so it's always one population, and this is going to be a 50% boost for dust. The next observance is going to be 50% boost of food for a or sorry, you gain 50% food to manpower, excuse me, um, not population. And then the other one that you don't see, you can actually sacrifice a population for Kai or the honor. So one thing I did earlier in the game, when it was, I'm going to say getting out of the early game, I took this planet from I don't remember who this was. Was it Lumineers? It was somebody. Um, uh, and I just sacrificed like a bunch of their population to get 20 Kai, and I was like, oh, that works. So there's definitely ways to get it, and it rotates through as you do the different observances. But it's kind of interesting. They really remind me of the Japanese in World War II. I think in terms of their just like strict focus on honor. They're great in combat. They've got let's pull up their population here. +2 manpower per turn, and then +1 industry per population. So they're focused. Military depends on that production, getting their ships out, and your bunkers up and such. And their 50 bonus here, their 50 population bonus is -25% ship production cost. Which combine that with is it the first military um, policy? That's like one influence a turn, I think. You're looking 40% off ships. You're building ships faster than the other guys. Oh, you have more worlds, so you can build them faster than other guys. So, that late game snowball really comes into effect. You just have to be careful when using your Kai, because if you get it down, you're gonna tank your loyalty. But um, it's actually pretty easy to keep up once you get it up. I feel like maybe almost a little too easy, honestly. But we'll talk about that in a second. When we get to the end of the policies here. And I don't know what these are actually called. What are they? It's an Empire action. Cool, we'll call them Empire actions. The basic one, Homeland Defense, doesn't cost any Kai. The rest of these cost essentially honor to use. For 10 turns, you can boost the manpower in the system by 20%, do extra damage, get extra health on your guys. Your people don't suffer as much. So that's really great for those outlying areas, especially this part of the game. I popped it here at one point. I don't think I've been attacked yet on this particular save that we're going to use to show off sacred ground with this, which this allows, which is a special tactic for ground battles. But it's useful. You can't use it once a system's already been invaded, so you do have to kind of plan ahead. But with a little paying attention, it's not too hard. Next, we've got war banners, which I'm like really not sure. It's a cool idea. Basically, it makes you move faster, see farther, and your fleet seems bigger. The health and power. I don't play multiplayer in Less Space 2. I'm not sure how easy this would be, or if you're able to dupe players really at all with it, but it seems to be a decent deterrent against the AI. For 80 dust and 3 honor, it's not a big expenditure, but it's something. Next, we got Way of the Obsidian Eagle. So you can boost the production by 25%, which, you can do this once is all. So you got to pick a planet. 5 honor every 10 turns. Like, you should reasonably be able to just easily not accommodate, accumulate that mid to late game, I think. So that's an easy way to just super power a system, leave a behemoth on it to increase those FIDS output and such, and you're sitting happy. And then finally, Order of the Red Blade. This is the best. You've got extra absorption on the fleet for shields, holes, and then damage output. So basically, it's just everything's better by 20%. This costs 8, which is pretty expensive, and a little bit of Hyperion. So mid-game, it's expensive. But again, by end game, you're throwing, 200k fleets at each other or so, or at least I was. I'm sure that's not the max. Pretty much would just drop that and then a battle or two have it. And if you're fighting on multiple fronts or things, again, you're going to have that easy peasy. So they're hard because you really use them early game when you might want to, but I feel like you can use it pretty liberally, honestly. It's not too cost prohibitive. Let's see, we've got 8, 5, okay, 13. So 16 every 10 turns. Yeah, you can generate 16 every 10 turns reasonably. And I mean, you probably should run all of these, but honestly, like war banners again, I'm so-so on that one. But it's cool. You've got this that's built into happiness, and you've got to kind of make that decision for you can use it on these bonuses or not. And I like how Amplitude does that. That's my we're going to tangent for a second. That's my reason why I think Endless Legend is the best 4X game out there. Is because every time I play that, I'm like, I literally have 3 or 4 things I want to do, and you can only pick like 1 or 2 of them. And it's not because it's like a branching tech tree that like you pick one and the other just isn't there. It's like, well, I want to do this with my influence, but I also want to use this with pearls, right? Endless Space 2 is moving that way. They're not there. I guess I'll focus on that a little bit more here in a moment, but with my kind of end impressions. But uh, it's nice to see things like this that you gotta kind of weigh your options, and it feels like some meaningful choices you're making. And that is the issue. Basically, they're fun. I'm having an enjoyable time. About 300 turns through just a regular game with medium settings essentially across the board. And it's kind of the end game. I think I've got at this point where I've got some behemoths and I can out colonize them, but that's that's what they are. Let's switch gears here to ground battles. Ground battles have been reworked. This seems new to me, and it's just a lot more transparent than it was at launch. I haven't played Endless Space recently, but I played with the what do they call it? State. Oh, I can't remember that free update. It's not statehood, but where they did the diplomacy overhaul. This is just a lot more, I think, easy to understand. Before I was always kind of like, what is going on? What are these choices I'm making? To watch the battle isn't really any different. It's still that kind of odd looking animation, but it's a space game. I can give them a pass on the ground combat for probably there's other things I want them to do before they make that look pretty for no reason. So, you've got your draft. It's going to show you all the outputs here. And then right here, the details are nice. Shows you the multiplier to health or damage and your reserves, your assigned. It's way cleaner and it's just easier to understand overall, which I appreciate. I think this is probably as much as they'll end up changing with ground combat. And again, I'm fine with that. I just want it to be a more transparent, easier to understand system. Uh, the Hissho do have this cool ability though called Sacred Ground, which allows you, the damage you saw with this. You got to use Sacred Ground on that. So that's that extra damage to the invaders, extra health, and then it's going to make it so you've got that minus 25%. See, it's 0 here. Um, 0 chance to lose that, improvements and such. So that's just another, let's dig in and really bloody their nose. If they're going to take this, they're going to pay for every inch of it. And that's really all I wanted to focus on with ground battles. Everything else is pretty much there. You still can hover around systems to bombard them and whatnot. Nothing's changed. Just the screen, this part of it's better. And this is where I spend most of my time. I don't really watch ground battles. I feel like it's a bit of just a tangent, but it's nice you have that, I guess, if you want to look at it. But it's just nice this finally got a treatment. So that gets us through the first 2 parts, the new race, ground battles. Let me kind of cover my overall impressions here. So overall, Supremacy, if you like Endless Space 2 at all, I think it's a no-brainer choice to buy. I'm not getting any kickback from Amplitude or anything for saying that, but they just price their expansion so good, like $10 for the level of content you get, and for as much free updates and stuff as they give you. I think that's worth it. There's other 4X games out there. I pay $20 or $30 for expansions, and I feel like you get pretty fair parity in terms of the content you're getting. Um, they improved the late game. You're not just slugging fleets out. Behemoths really do add a new dimension to that, both with the defense, the system destroyers, and then how they can just lead fleets to glorious destruction. That's a good thing to put in the end game, I think, and that was needed. Where do they go from here? I know. I think it was a community poll. They've got espionage on the horizon, which I honestly hope they do that. Is this like a free update like they did with the I'm calling it statehood. It's not statehood. I can't remember it. Statecraft. That's what it is. Jeez. Like with statecraft, because I can't think of a 4X game that I'm just like, dang, like espionage is such a good like element here. I'm so glad that was added. It's gonna add your typical things, vision, maybe affect influence between people, steal some money or some technology. Like, if they put their minds to it, Amplitude can do anything. But I don't really think that like is where this game needs to go. I don't need another UI menu to go in. These are all super clean, and I think they work well, but I don't really need another UI button to click into something else to manage. I think they need to go through and refine what they have here a little bit more. Because I think, as I said before, maybe even in the last video, Endless Legend 2 was a game that Nate, Nasrog, he was always hyped about, and I was like, I bought it, and I was like, this game sucks, like I thought at the beginning. It probably wasn't fair, but it just was like, I have other games I can spend my time with. By expansion 3, I think that was when I was like, okay, they're on to something here. And then came, what is it? The one that added pearls and the one that added sea fortresses and like sea combat and everything. Those two especially, I was just like, this game was already like fantastic, and now it's just going above and beyond. Endless Space 2 is not there yet. I personally think Space 4X games uh, really struggle overall. Stellaris is the only one I think still that truly fulfills the vision it's trying to set out for. And of course, it's the only one that has like the really unique events and stuff that I think you should have. Like anything can happen in space. And Amplitude is doing a really good job with the race creation, I think. Like, um, I know Unfallen was like a community creation. I thought that was pretty unique. But then you've got like the Cravers I love. The Sophons are a little stereotypical but interesting. Some of the trade races are unique. Riftborn are, I thought were completely like out of left field, but in an awesome way, and such. So they've got that down, but they need to, like I said, flesh out some of their systems. My biggest complaint with this, and I think again this is pretty stereotypical of 4X games across the board. So it's, I'm not trying to just pick on Endless Space 2 here. This doesn't matter. This whole screen doesn't matter. Um, you're going to build improvements, and they're all going to look the same. Now, yes, you do that also in Civ, and in Stellaris, you pretty much, are going to max out your mines and everything. I get that. But what my problem is there's no like in the Endless Legend, for example, you've got your hexes where you put a city really matters. You're limited where you put your city, one per region. So that's a limitation. Forces a really important decision for players where you can branch out your city. With expansion packs and stuff, they have buildings that really matter. Um, some of the buildings, and I don't remember their names, that cost pearls to build, like double the output of strategic or luxury resources. And those things are like huge, when you've got like your 12 science and it like doubles, you're like, yeah, like, you get pumped. You're like, I just built that. Like, at least I do. And it feels meaningful, and it's something you want to build all the time, but you can't. And in this space too, you're limited by the planet. So every population has 2 food on Cancer 3. Uh, 10 output, 4 dust, That's what it is. Now, okay, cool. I can look at this planet and it's actually that's the same. I can look at this planet, it's lava, so tons of output, and that's neat. But it's essentially like you have 4 tiles to choose from. Like, if you think about like civilization or endless space, you've got 4 tiles to choose from. Stellaris to a lesser degree. I think it's kind of in between that and something like Gal Civ. And I'm trying not to get too much in the weeds, but this is just, I'm going to go off on my soapbox here for a minute. So you've got 4 tiles to choose from, and I hope that they do something with these planets. They're already so unique, like their variations, like jungle, hot, fertile. It could be jungle, like a lot of different things. Like the random generator for the types of planets and their characteristics is really cool. I just don't feel like that really matters. And I'm always like, oh, you don't have a bunker on the, outside. Let's build that. And the planets themselves, it's just max population, but it doesn't matter, right? You might eventually decolonize a planet if you're strapped for a colonization limit and it's a huge map or something. But again, you're working with 4 tiles the whole time and you just work with improvements. So they could take that a lot of ways, making it so you, over a long period of time, you're investing in planets, you're spending influence. This could be an influence pit to put stuff in, because right now influence is basically just some like diplomacy and laws, which is cool, but they could really make these matter a lot more, I think, which would be a cool barrier for them to jump, speed bump for them to get over, whatever you want to say. Um, so that's probably my biggest thing there. And then also on top of that, and yeah, the only other major one really I can think about is, and this isn't maybe major, it's like hero ships. I feel like they could take another pass over heroes and really make them stand out a little bit more. They're kind of on par with how they worked in Endless Legend, which I think is well, but I don't want them to just constrain themselves by their same ideas, and I don't think Amplitude will. But yeah, and so that was, yeah, hopefully not too much of a tangent. Hopefully that made sense to you. But it doesn't. I don't think this is quite brings. Let me go back. This expansion doesn't quite bring Endless Space 2 to fantastic status in my eyes. I'm still waiting for the game to really hit its full stride, to really distinguish itself as the best 4X, again, kind of the way they did Endless Legend, and maybe they're not going to hit that. I don't know. I hope they do. I have faith that Amplitude has the potential for that. Planets would be cool to see, and then I'm always some of the things they added to Endless Legend I wouldn't have thought of. So I have full faith that they probably can come up with some pretty awesome stuff. Um, but yeah, so that's kind of my thoughts there. Again, if you like the game, I think it's totally worth getting the expansion. It's just going to improve. It really improves the late game, which 4X games traditionally struggle from. Gets a really good, unique new race, and it's such a bargain. I think at like the $10 or $12, whatever they're selling them for. So, that sells itself. I feel like they sell their own expansions, but it's if you're still waiting on Endless Space 2 to really hit that that Endless Legend levels of strides, yeah, you might read our review when it comes out, look at other sites and stuff. Is it might not It's not there yet, but it's nice to see the improvement. I'm excited for the future, and it's a solid expansion. So let me know what you think in the comments below. And especially, if you've watched this far, listen to my hopefully not too much of a rambling on my little planet soapbox here. Let me know what you would like them to add. What do they need to do this game? Because these developers really do listen to their community, and they've got such great potential. So anyhow, I appreciate you watching both of these, and we're happy to answer any questions we got here. We've always got great discussion going on our forums on Steam if you haven't checked that out, both about Endless Space 2 and really just like 4X games, interesting off-topic stuff. If you're playing these games, you're going to find stuff that you'd probably want to talk with other people about, and we've got a really awesome community on the forums there. So thanks for watching. As always, I appreciate it, and look forward to you guys getting a chance to get your hands on this game yourself. So until then, thanks.